FPL Game Week 3 is throwing up just as many hurdles as Game Week 1 and 2 did. It looks like we're going to be without Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, but we have had other bits of positive injury news. In today's video, we're going to take a look at what that means for my team, as I am a Cole Palmer owner. We'll talk about best players to buy in all the positions. If you've had enough and you want to free hit or wildcard, we'll have a look at those drafts. General discussion about all 20 teams in the league and everything you need to know for Game Week 3 to hopefully turn things around before the international break. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim, and subscribe if you are new around here. And let's dive in and talk straight about the main talking point of Game Week 3, and that is Cole Palmer. Enzo Maresca has ruled him out of the Fulham at home game. He was one of the most highly owned players in the game, has been ruled out, is not included in the England squad for international duty. Now, there is, of course, a possibility that he could be back for Game Week 4, as Maresca said that they are taking it day by day with Cole Palmer. It is a recurrence of the groin injury he's been suffering for quite a period of time, it sounds like. My issue with Cole Palmer, particularly early on in the season, is price changes happen very quickly. If you have a bit of a bench, you have someone that can cover him, like even if it's a Dewsbury Hall or a third forward, I would consider holding on to him, because Brentford away in Game Week 4, he's one of the best captaincy options that week, although most of us will be looking at Mo Salah away at Burnley. I do expect him to probably drop in price before the Game Week 3 deadline. Looking at the Fantasy Football Scout points projected price changes, it's going to be very close at the moment, and that's only 3:30, and I expected a lot of transfers to accelerate over this afternoon, and then probably he's going to drop at least once, if not twice, over the international break. I don't personally want to take the risk of losing 0.3 value on a player that I don't even know if he's going to be back for Game Week 4. So personally, I would be looking to move out Cole Palmer. Next up, is it advisable buying Manchester United players? Now, they've actually failed to score from open play so far in the Premier League and then lost to Grimsby. The only goal they scored, I think, went down as an own goal from Muniz of Fulham. I still like the fixture a lot, but I wouldn't be doubling, tripling up on them, I don't think. If you're on a free hit this week, it is a fixture that you can look to target. Bruno Fernandes, I like Brian Mbeumo. I probably prefer both of them over Matheus Cunha, who did play 90 minutes against Grimsby midweek. I'm just struggling a little bit with the way Amorim is playing. I think he's being too stubborn. I don't think the system works for the players they've got. Like, Bruno Fernandes is their best player, and they're playing a system that consistently plays him out of position. But that is a whole topic of conversation for another day. I like buying Manchester United players, but I completely understand if you're put off, and I think one of them is enough. And the final one is what to do if you're looking for a 7.5 million forward. If you're looking to downgrade Palmer to someone like Semenyo, a Sarr, a Kudus, and you're looking to upgrade a forward, where should you go? Personally, João Pedro is my favourite long-term option, and I think he gets a decent boost if Cole Palmer is out. He's likely to be their main creative hub and be on penalties. But if you're looking short-term, I really like Chris Wood, having West Ham, Sunderland and Burnley in 3 of the next 4. You can also look at Mateta, but I am slightly concerned about Crystal Palace being put off by the amount of chances they're going to create without Eze in the team. Like, if you look at the data from the FootMob app, if you look at what they did in the second half, particularly against Nottingham Forest, they struggled to create virtually any chances. And that is really the fatigue that we are seeing creep in because of the European fixtures they have to play. And of course, they played Europe again on Thursday, where they failed to score. And now they're playing on Sunday again against an Aston Villa side who didn't have any matches midweek. They weren't in the cup qualifiers or anything like that. So because of what I'm seeing with Palace, I do drop Mateta down the list a little bit, and it is impacting my thoughts on someone like Ismail Assar, just the amount of chances I think they are going to be able to create. So at the moment, short term, if you're going to wildcard soon, I'd go Chris Wood. Long term, João Pedro. I probably would put both of them above Mateta. If you want to check that sort of data out, though, this video is sponsored by FootMob. You can check it out with a link in the description. So next up, having a look at the Captaincy Ranking. And I think if you've got Erling Haaland away at Brighton, he is the #1 captain for me this week. He's got the highest percentage chance of an attacking return. He's right up there for projected points on the Scout website. He's not that highly captained, but as you can see with the captain's percentages, it is massively split. And actually, that Bruno Fernandes number, I had to put Manchester United players overall in the poll, and that was getting about 35%. But I know a lot of you are considering Matheus Cunha. Now, in terms of projected goals, Manchester United are at the top. They're projected to, about the only team projected to score more than 2 goals. But you know what their performances are like, and I completely get that you might not want to captain them. But if you own someone like Fernandes, I completely get if you don't want to buy them. but if you own him, he has to be a captaincy consideration. So he is in at number 2. I've gone with Chris Wood. I think the Nottingham Forest projected goals are a little bit harsh, given the way that West Ham have been defending in game weeks 1 and 2. I've got João Pedro. I do think Fulham are a team that rarely get a lot of goals scored against them. I think the projection of 2 goals for Chelsea is very fair, and I would not be surprised if that game finished 2-1 or 2-0 to Chelsea. So I think João Pedro is a reasonable captain. I don't think he's going to, set the world alight like he did in game week 2. And of course, you've got to have Mo Salah in the top captaincy ranking. Despite Liverpool projected to score the lowest amount of goals, his also projected points isn't quite as high as we usually expect. His goal involvement is always good. And if they're going to score 1 or 2, you've got to expect Salah to be in and around it. But Haaland is obvious if you own him. Outside of that, I think Bruno and Chris Wood are good. Salah is safe, or you can look at João Pedro if you don't mind backing the early kickoff. So we've actually sort of reordered the video slightly, and we're going to do all the stuff which relates to this game week right at the beginning, and then we'll talk about projections, sort of future stuff later on in the video. So we're actually going to do benching rankings. If you've got a benching decision, you've got the goalkeepers on the left-hand side there. To be honest, because Dubravka has a Manchester United away fixture this week, there aren't many goalkeepers that I would start Dubravka over, apart from maybe if you've got Bruggen going up against Manchester City. So generally, a lot of the goalkeeper decisions are quite straightforward this week. In terms of the outfield players, again, most of you will not be playing a back four this week unless you're forced to if you're deciding to keep Cole Palmer. Mark Guiu is not on this list. I would start pretty much every single player you have over him. Now, he did start in the Cup for Sunderland midweek and did score, but I don't think this will be the fixture that he comes in for. I expect him to be on the bench again, and I might expect him from game week 4 onwards to start getting some minutes. He might start getting into the starting lineup more often than we've seen so far, but at the moment, I would start defenders over him. Now, in terms of the attackers, if you've got Watkins, you've got Anderson of Nottingham Forest, Strand Larson, Ekatike, Rodgers and Dye, the chances are you're not really going to be looking to bench them. Illiman and Dye, then next, Kudu, Semenyo, over Sarr. I don't mind Bowen if you've got him, despite him playing Nottingham Forest. Reinders over Dewsbury Hall. Fulkrog, I think there's a risk he doesn't start at all. And they're probably over all of the defenders. Now, Fulkrog, you could opt to go for a Nottingham Forest defender. I do think Fulkrog probably does start, but I wouldn't blame you if you decided to start an extra defender over going with someone like a Fulkrog. Nottingham Forest defence is a definite start, as is Dorgu, as is your Spurs defenders most likely. Munoz, I really like, and Tarkowski's quite high up there. It does sound like Strand Larson is likely to stay, although he is a slight doubt going into this week, but I would still start Strand Larson if you've got him. You've got other Crystal Palace defenders in Lacroix up there. You've got Van der Ven, Tosin, Konza, Gabriel, Chris Richards, Virgil van Dijk, Anderson of Fulham going up against Chelsea. Then you've got the West Ham defenders, and then you've got Esteve at the bottom. Despite Manchester United being poor, I still would be benching your Burnley defenders this week. Now, looking at the projections overall for Game Week 3, now we touched on some of this when we looked at the captaincy candidates for this week. Chelsea, Manchester United, the only teams projected to score 2 goals. There's a couple going close. Spurs at 1.96. It's just a little bit difficult with Spurs predicting which of their players is going to be involved. Manchester City at 1.85. Now, in terms of clean sheets, Manchester United are up there, Nottingham Forest and Chelsea. Outside of that, Aston Villa just about creeping in, but they don't have a great record against Crystal Palace. So in terms of clean sheet odds, Chelsea, Man United and Forest are the key standouts. In terms of goal scored, you've got Man United, Spurs, City and Chelsea. So just to go back and talk a little bit about what we have heard during the press conference and just to rattle through a few teams. The key takeaways is Palmer is ruled out. We don't have an exact time frame. He probably will be back in Game Week 4, but it's not guaranteed. Saka is out for a few weeks. He might be back again, although I'd be surprised. He hasn't required surgery. Odegaard is not ruled out, although I'd be surprised if he played. He has not trained yet with the Arsenal squad, but they didn't want to rule him out completely. Aït-Nouri is back and available despite 500,000 transfers out for Ryan Aït-Nouri. He is back and available, and Pep Guardiola said he's available for selection. So, he might not necessarily start, but I think he will probably, and he is back available. So I don't see any reason why not. Bradley is available for Liverpool, so I expect him to come in at right back. Rutter, Brighton were very coy on giving any real update on him. They don't know whether he's going to be available or not. And there was a slight update on Strand Larson that he is dealing with a small issue. They do hope he can play. Now, part of you has to wonder whether that Strand Larson injury is something real or whether it's just trying to deal with the speculation that he could leave. I do think it is real because if you look at some of the games, particularly Manchester City, he was, carrying a bit of an ankle injury in that game. So I do think it's realistic, but it's one to note. If you've got Strand Larsen, he is a slight doubt. I do expect him to play. Just to cover off a few of the other teams. So in at Chelsea, Palmer being out, I expect Delap and João Pedro to both start. Neto should start. Some of you are looking at that. And it will probably be Esteval on the other side. Tosin and Chalobah should start in defence. Fulham, it looks like Muniz is going to stay. So at 5.5 million, we might have him up front. But him and Raul Jimenez continue to rotate. Manchester United, we've covered a lot. He's probably going to go with the same system again, which I think is a mistake. I'm not sure Sesko will come in yet. I do think Cunha and Mbeumo will start. At Spurs, so many questions about Brennan Johnson, so many questions about Richarlison. I just think Richarlison is a risk. I just think Solanke will come in at some point, and it might not be straight away, but once Champions League starts, they're going to rotate that forward. Now, the other thing with Brennan Johnson, his goal threat is great, and if he was going to play the same minutes as everyone else, he has got to be right up there, but his minutes are more at risk than someone like A. Kudus. They've just signed Xavi Simons. They're still linked with other wingers going into the end of the transfer window. Brennan Johnson is the most at risk. And also when Champions League starts, feels like too big a risk. I really like what he's been doing at the start of the season. But if you're buying a Spurs midfielder, for me, it should be Kudus. At Bournemouth, Kluivert may well be back, but the only real Bournemouth players I'd consider is maybe Senesi or Diakite in defence, but really it's Semenyo this week, given the fixture they have. So Sunderland versus Brentford, there's not much to invest in there. Brentford, Dango is an interesting punt. Also, you could look at Thiago if you do need a cheap forward for a replacement for someone like a Fulkrog and you don't have money to go anywhere else. Wolves, as I said, I expect Strand Larsen to play. Defensively, Agbadou is probably the one to look at, although I'm not sure I'd be investing new. He's in my team. And looking at Everton, I expect them to score goals. I expect Dibbling to be on the bench. So Undai, Grealish, Dewsbury Hall, midfield three. I also expect Tarkowski to play. He's not a bad buy. In at Leeds, Newcastle, both teams are without quite a lot of crucial players. Tonali isn't ruled out. Fabian Schär is available. Anthony Gordon is suspended and Joe Linton is unavailable. Leeds remain without Agbadou. I think this is a really difficult game to call. Of course, Newcastle have signed a new striker, but I would be very surprised if he goes straight into the lineup for Saturday. I don't believe he's been added to FPL yet at time of recording. Moving into Sunday, as I said with Brighton, Rutter, I'd be surprised if he starts based off what we know. There is a video of him dancing on TikTok, so maybe he's going to be available and maybe he is okay. It's probably not the best opportunity and I probably would look to sell. Manchester City, I expect Reinders to start. I expect Haaland to start, of course. I do think Cherky will probably be dropping out and I do expect Aït-Nouri to come back into the lineup. And Nottingham Forest, I don't love Gibbs White. Ndoye is an interesting one at a nice price, but I still feel like when they have European fixtures, there is just a little bit of risk there. Like we've seen Nuno change system a lot and suddenly wingers drop out. I still prefer Anderson at a cheaper price and going with Chris Wood up front, and the defenders remain great options, but most of us invested early on. West Ham, look all over the place. No buys there and probable sells. Liverpool, Arsenal, let's wait in Liverpool. If they don't sign Isak, Ekitike and Gakpo are suddenly top priority buys for me going into game week 4. But if they do sign Isak, I suddenly will probably not buy any of them going into game week 4. Although I think Ekitike and Gakpo will both start game week 4 and probably start game week 5, even if they do sign Isak, there is a time that will come where Isak will go into that lineup. At Arsenal, without Saka, without Odegaard potentially, I wouldn't be going with Gyökeres yet. Defensively, they're fine, but you're probably not buying against Liverpool. And at Villa, I would just hold on to them. Palace fatigued after midweek. I don't mind if you want to buy some Palace players, though. Their top priority for me going into game week 4 with their fixtures, they'll probably hold for both of these teams unless you need a cheap midfielder in Saar. So just having a look at the fixture ticker now as we broaden the horizon, starting to look at players to buy slightly more long term. As I said with Villa, I probably would look to hold on to them because their fixtures from game week 3 onwards look great. That's why people are diving into Spurs as they are next up. Wolves also high up. So if Strand Larsen is going to stay and be available, the fixture run looks great and you definitely want to hold on to him. Also high up, you've got Bournemouth, Manchester City and Crystal Palace. That is why the likes of Sarr, Lacroix, Munoz, Richards, Mateta look like good options. Although, as I said earlier on, a little bit disappointed by the chances they created in the Thursday night game in Europe in the second half against Nottingham Forest. Again, I checked all of this on the FootMob app if you want to download it completely free. to check stuff as the game week goes on and live scores. I'm a little bit concerned by them. Down at the bottom, Burnley, we're not going to be playing our Dubravkas nor Estev very much. Anderson at Fulham, probably not the best opportunity to buy them unless you want to dip in and out depending on the fixture. Everton and Man United. And this is the issue with buying someone like a Bruno, because after this week, the fixtures don't look as good. Now, looking at the best players to buy, if you're looking to buy this week, with all of that taken into account, in goal, Sanchez is one for the long-term benefit, but I like Sells for the short-term. Really impressed by Vicario. I probably prefer the defenders, but if you can't get to one of them, I don't mind that. Petrovic and Kelleher at 4.5 alike, and of course, Dubravka is the cheaper option. Into defense, the issue with this, and I need to find a better way to do this, so let me know any suggestions in the comments. Because so many teams now with DEFCON have so many good defenders to buy, I end up having just one or two teams in the top defenders to buy. Like, I still like buying a toss-in of Chelsea, a Kukurea, a Tarkowski, but Spurs, Forest, and Palace are my top three defenders. So Porro is top, just over Romero. I think I probably would opt for the Porro attacking data. If you're going Forest, I probably would just go Williams or Olorayino and just go for one of the cheaper ones, based off the fact that in a few weeks, we're probably going to look to sell them, so the DEFCON is slightly less appealing. Then we're looking at Palace. I love Lacroix's DEFCON. He's looked great for it, and I'm going with him over Munoz. Cheaper option, I like Van der Ven. I've also mentioned the Bournemouth defenders in the likes of Senesi, but they go away to Spurs this week. Not sure I'd go with Dorgu now, just based off the way Man United are performing. That being said, Bruno is top of my midfielders to buy, followed by Brian and Burmo. But as a caveat, I would only buy one. I don't think the double up is needed. One of them if you want to captain them, and if you're not going to captain them, I'm not really sure it's worth buying them this week. Then I've gone with Semenyo, although he is slightly more expensive. And if you need a cheaper option, I like Ismail Assar. The only thing I would say with Sarr, once again, is I just caveat without Eze in Europe, what's going to happen to them. I'm a little bit cautious of it. Kudus next. Then it is Anderson of Nottingham Forest. Cheaper option I like, and I probably would buy him over Reinders of City based on the fixtures they've got for the next three. Then up front, João Pedro is better long-term. Chris Wood is best short-term. Then it's Mateta. Haaland, if you can stretch up to it. I don't advise selling Ollie Watkins. And then Strand Larsen. Now, he is adding a little bit of a caveat that he is a slight risk this week. So maybe not the best week to buy him. But long-term, he still looks like a great pick. Then we're having a look at a free hit draft. It's pretty similar to the one I put out earlier on in the week. Sells in goal. I would punt on triple Man United. And I know people don't like it on a free hit, but there aren't enough fantastic fixtures to target this week if you're on a free hit. You could change it, but I would go Dorgu, Fernandez, and Burmo. Haaland, Wood, João Pedro. Feels like it kind of picks itself unless you wanted to go and, punt on Richarlison. I've gone with Alanga and Kudus in midfield with the attacking threat of Kukurea, Porro, along with Dorgu in defense. Then having a look at a wildcard draft. Again, a caveat. Please, if you can, wait to wildcard in game week 4 until the transfer window has shut. Wildcarding over the international break is always nice. You get a couple of weeks, but also the transfer window. Like what happens with Isak is going to change what a wildcard draft will look like. Like there is no Ekatike and there is no Gakpo in here. If Isak doesn't move, they will both be nailed on picks in a game week 4 wildcard. So I don't love it this week, but if you're looking to do it, Sanchez and Dubravka, I've gone with Lacroix, Milenkovic, Porro with Senesi on the bench, along with Goodmanson, Salah, Semenyo, Reinders, and Burma with Sarr on the bench this week. Although his record against Villa, you could start him over Reinders or Semenyo, Chris Wood, João Pedro, and Ollie Watkins. I've gone with Ollie Watkins because you want that price point. Whether it's Isak, whether it's Gyökeres, whether it's Ekatike, that price point is really useful to have. And Watkins has the best short-term fixtures to just hold it down. And then having a look at my team, and of course with Cole Palmer ruled out, that is what I'm really focusing on. Now, looking at my team, Sanchez in goal, Porro, and then it's Agbadu. And this video is sponsored by FootMob, and one of the biggest bits of feedback we've had is tracking DEFCON. You have to add it up manually, and clearances versus headed clearances, how do you add them up? So FootMob have added an integration, which is going live on the app over the next sort of day or so, ahead of the weekend, hopefully, to have a specific line, which is defensive contributions aligning with the FPL definition. You can track the live score, you can track FPL points in the app, but you can also now track a specific line of defensive contributions in real time, updated really quickly if you want to in the app. And Agbadu hit it in game week 2 against Bournemouth. Anderson also did. And part of me looks at Anderson and thinks, could I just start him over Palmer and hope Palmer is back in game week 4? And that is something I'm realistically considering, specifically looking at how good Anderson probably is going to be for DEFCON against Chelsea, right? With the way that we pick up the ball from the likes of João Pedro, from the likes of Liam Delap, that he could be great for it. But I do think I'm likely to make 2 transfers. So looking at what's most likely, it is Palmer and it is Mark Guiu out. As I've said throughout the video, with the chances that Crystal Palace have created over the past couple of games, I'm a little bit cautious of going Ismaila Sarr, but his record against Villa is great, and he then has Sunderland and West Ham in the 2 games after that. I think Chris Wood is almost certain to be the Mark Guiu replacement, just based off the short-term fixtures, and I don't really want to double up with Mateta. So I am looking at Kudus. Ismaila Sarr is still the most likely, as is Chris Wood. I'm not guaranteeing that's where I'm going to go. If, for example, this evening we saw Isak to Liverpool is completely off, then I might find a way to go and get Ekatike in. It does look like Cole Palmer is going to drop in price tonight, so I will likely be forced to make that transfer early, given that we know that Cole Palmer is ruled out and I don't need, any sort of news on whether Palmer is turning up on Saturday morning. But I'm a little bit all over the place. I still think Sarr and Chris Wood is the most likely to see what I do, but I don't think it's guaranteed. If Chris Wood comes in, he will, compete with Bruno for the captaincy, but Bruno currently has it. Most likely transfer is Sarr and Chris Wood, but I'm just wavering a little bit on Palace based off what I've seen with them without Eze and how tired they already look with just a couple of extra European fixtures. And I just don't think they have the depth to deal with it very well. So that is all. We will be live on Saturday morning looking at what transfers I've probably made by the time we go live. In 2 hours before the deadline, 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. It is already scheduled, so click the link above to go and get it notified. As always, if you want to check live scores, if you want to track live DEFCON over the weekend, please go and download the FootMob app. It is completely free. It is what I use to track scores over the weekend, to track data, how teams are performing, the XG they're creating, and maybe it's enough to put me off captaining Bruno, because looking at some of their data, Manchester United have not created nearly enough, and maybe Chris Wood is better. We'll be discussing all of that on the Game Week 3 deadline stream, though. Thank you all for watching. Any questions that haven't been covered in this video, please drop it in the comment section down below. I'll answer some, but also bring some to the deadline stream as well, and we'll answer them there. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely Friday evening. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.